Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Quacks podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dozer, and if you're new to the show, the mission here is to expose the quacks and gimmicks in the marketing industry while featuring some great marketers and entrepreneurs along the way. On this episode, I'm excited to welcome our guest, Marshall Lamb. Marshall is the manager of tournament operations at the John Deere Classic Golf Tournament. Marshall, thanks so much for joining the show.
Absolutely. Happy to chat and really good to talk with you today, Ryan.
Absolutely. Marshall and I go back a little bit. We connected at UNI and actually worked together when we were both interns for the Iowa PGA. So that's kind of how I got to know you a little bit in the golf business, which I respect a lot. So let's just do a quick intro on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm currently with the John Deere Classic since 2019. Didn't start with them right after undergrad, kind of when I got my master's at Arizona State. So did about a year and a half at Arizona State. Great time there, and then started off as an intern with the John Deere Classic, and then my role there quickly evolved into a full-time position, and then now taking on and leading the operations of the John Deere Classic, really for the last 2 years, this being the third year. So quick escalation to where I am now, but I mean, we work with a great tournament, a great community here within the Quad City area, and it's fantastic. So a little bit more about kind of what I do with the tournament is, again, manage all the operations. The best way that I can kind of really put it is, if you think about for a 4-month span, I'm really kind of creating a small city within a golf course. So that means architectural build, working with all the various vendors from generators, TV contracts, to anything that you see out there that's temporary just kind of goes underneath my nose, and I manage all the expenses on that side of things.
So a lot of logistics and a lot of moving parts.
Absolutely, but wouldn't want it any other way. Really special golf event that we have here.
For sure. It's a big deal in the state of Iowa. I know that. So talk about how you've leveraged marketing at all, whether it's your current role or your past roles at the John Deere Classic. How has marketing kind of played a role in what you do?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, especially like with me kind of being on the ops side and then kind of have like an outsiders or like kind of insiders or in some shape or form inside the marketing role. But to go back to what you had just said, like how have I used it? And I think this is something that you can relate to as well, Ryan, would be how I leveraged myself during undergrad and kind of graduate school. And that was simply just by creating like a website. And it's just how far that goes from a marketability of yourself when doing job applications or just sharing that information. Because I think there's a unique way to market yourself outside of just a resume. And for that, it was just creating a website. And that kind of shows like how you're able to leverage your digital assets and then also kind of like your traditional resume as well. So I think that was one thing from a marketing side, that it was just kind of more branding related, but something that really set myself aside and maybe even other people that do that aside as well. But within like kind of our job now within the John Deere Classic, I think what we do well is just kind of like we really know our audience well, and I think it's like really great that we've been along here for so long, that we have such a great response to our social media, and we're one of the best ones on the PGA Tour when it comes down to activation on our social channels. So it's really great that we kind of have had that foundation here within the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you don't have to give the secret sauce, but how does the John Deere Classic kind of leverage digital marketing or digital media to attract, whether it's selling tickets or just attract sponsors? How are they kind of leveraging the digital space?
Yeah, so it's like the digital space for us really kind of opened up that within the last couple of years with partnering with Ticketmaster. So it's like us now kind of having that ability to have all digital tickets and kind of uniform and put all of our kind of ticketing and digital stuff into one like space, into one bucket, has really made things a lot easier when kind of marketing from the ticketing side of things. And again, not to say that there is any secret sauce to it. It's just kind of within the event itself that really kind of sells itself within itself. So and it's what really helps us over the years, and it's, again, we've been around for a really long time, right? It's just like these email lists that we've compiled over the years just to kind of send volunteer information, send that we're having a Jake Owen charity concert, that we're having ticket on sales, volunteers. It's just such an important thing to have, are these email lists from just that have been compiled over the years.
Yeah, email is huge for what you do for sure. Now, how big of a deal is it, like social media, or what about like getting those big name golfers? I'm sure that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, it's unique because like with the John Deere Classic, we're also kind of adopting John Deere's brand, but it's also kind of dancing within that area of like how comfortable is John Deere wanting to do what we want to do from an experimental side of things within the John Deere Classic, right? So we always have to be cognizant of what John Deere's brand versus like kind of how we want to run the golf side of things. So
That's a good point.
yeah, so it's like what Deere has done a great job with Zach Johnson, kind of getting him involved from the golf tournament side of things. And there's very other players that we just kind of have conversations with. Steve Stricker being another one. We had done something with Daniel Berger. So something that we see a high success rate probably within the golf industry is also partnering with tour players and kind of seeing like how they can get their brand to people that really enjoy golf.
Yeah, I always view the John Deere Classic, and I used to work in the golf industry too, as you know, as kind of that tournament where it propels young guys and puts them to that next level. Like I saw that with Jordan Spieth, and a lot of people listening probably have heard that name, but probably didn't realize that Jordan Spieth got his first thing at the Masters. I think it was that chip in, right?
Absolutely.
Where ended up winning on that chip in on 18. So Steve Stricker is another one for people in golf who know that name. So yeah, it's really cool what the John Deere Classic is doing for these young golfers. But I want to move on to another question here, just related to golf in general. Who are some golf brands and companies that excel in marketing, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think some of the ones that excel really well is just like it's hard to kind of grow a niche when you first start within the golf industry, and there's a couple that like really come to mind that not saying they're disruptors, but they also do a really great job. I think one I have a couple written down here is B. Draddy. They're one of these Techno Sport golf company polos that they have a great material, great thing, but what they have been so aggressive with is just with their scale, with partnering with golfers itself, and then just getting it into high level golf tournaments and golf shops and stuff like that. So is that if you can disrupt a little bit or start seeing it on tour players, it's really pushes the needle for these golf brands. And then there's a couple of smaller ones that I'm not saying I'm giving them a shout out to, but I think that are really great, that are going to continue to be really well, just because one, they know their audience, and two, the stuff that they do is so good that it's like the proof is with the pudding. Like there's no questions asked. And that's handcrafted golf. They make very nice golf head covers, and they're starting to get into, with tour players, they're starting to get into country clubs and stuff like that. And another one is like Tyson Lamb. He makes these like very unique, what do you want to call it, like divot tools and ball markers. And that's what golfers like, is just to like be a little bit different and kind of like showcase that. So with some of those brands kind of disrupting that, and then you kind of having said new product, I think those are some brands that are like really doing a really great job. And it all starts with how good the product is, Ryan.
That's true too. You know, I look at TaylorMade when Tiger came back a while ago, and they made this ad where it said like one is never done, and it was like this cool build-up video of Tiger, and now he's with TaylorMade. I think Bridgestone, did something similar now that he uses Bridgestone as like his main golf ball. But yeah, that's just really cool. And I always think of PXG, Parsons Extreme Golf, about 5 or 6 years ago when they got on the show. I liked how they did their marketing too.
I think it's also difficult, like with those large companies itself, Ryan. Like you said, your Titleist, your TaylorMade, your Bridgestone. It's like year after year they have to compete not only against those brands, but they have to compete against themselves, because they're coming out with trending with new product every year. So for them to have they need to have a really comprehensive, like strong, aggressive marketing push, because they need to sell all these driver heads, all these putters, all these balls that year in order to get something to the next year. So it's a very fascinating kind of scope what the golf equipment business is in, knowing that they have to push this, and they're thinking, as you know, with any large brand, they're thinking years ahead. So it's like, this is now 2 years' work that we have to push through and get through. So it's a really unique kind of like study of like how these golf equipment brands really push from a marketing standpoint and being aggressive.
I'm just curious, random question. Is the Pro V1 still the number one ball in golf?
It has to be. I mean, I think it has to be. A lot of those guys are still using it out there, and it'd be hard pressed to really push them. But we're gonna see what the golf marketing looks like from the golf ball with the rollback of the golf ball that's going to be happening here in about 3 to 4 years. So a lot of new information is going to be coming out, and it's going to be interesting how the tour players are going to be playing that ball, but then you and I could be playing the old ball. But everybody wants to be playing what the pros are playing. So it's just like, where do you go with that?
I just remember when I was playing 10 years ago, Pro V, everyone was always talking about the Pro V, and the branding of just the Pro V as a golf ball, I feel like is still relevant today.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And it's like they created such a great product, and they were one of the leaders in creating that product. That's just, they've carried that story, they've carried that torch for X amount of years, and they've been so good about improving little by little, but they set the foundation so early that they were so good that it's just really hard to get away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to transition a little bit to Live Golf. I know Live Golf has kind of been the big news in the golf world here for the
Yeah.
past couple of years. What are your thoughts about Live Golf? I mean, are they going to compete with the PGA Tour? How do you look at them from a marketing perspective versus what the PGA Tour is doing?
Yeah, marketing is kind of its own thing. So when you think about like how Live started from its generation, I think they had obviously the financial backing, which is a huge piece, but that was kind of the thing that they just wanted to start right away and be aggressive with. So the one way that they were able to do that is start to take players from the PGA Tour, which is no problem or anything like that. But I think something that they didn't realize was that obviously you have to have a TV contract. You got to have eyeballs, and you got to have a really strong, comprehensive understanding and following from those guys. So because some of those people, as much as you think you might be a John Rahm fan, but you're actually a PGA Tour fan because you're watching that. Not many people follow John Rahm to watch the CW on a Saturday, Sunday. So it's kind of that, even though you have the money and you got the guys, it's just where you got to really put the building blocks there and get the social media following and be aggressive with that. So I think they're in the early stages of really getting that figured out. And obviously them now being off of YouTube on the CW is probably a step in the right direction. But how I feel about it is I'm a traditionalist with the PGA Tour. I just really enjoy the product that they have been able to put together, and just kind of the whole motive behind the PGA Tour, being able to kind of really elevate people that over the years for the Corn Ferry events, being able to kind of really elevate people that are really creating the best tour. So it's a sticky conversation because I can be not saying persuade, but different conversations are brought up every day of like, is the PGA Tour going to merge with Live? Where does it need to go from here? But as of right now, honestly, I would probably be more on the pessimistic side of seeing that they're going to get anything done here soon.
Yeah, I just had to ask because that's like been one of the biggest stories in the golf world for the past couple of years. But I want to talk about Tiger Woods really quick too, because you can't really talk about golf and marketing without mentioning Tiger's name at all, in my opinion. So talk about, I guess, you mentioned John Rahm. Like no one's going to follow John Rahm to watch Live Golf. Right. I completely agree with you. I don't think anyone has the branding or name power of Tiger Woods, at least in my generation or of all time. Right. Talk about, in your opinion, what Tiger has done for just marketing the game of golf in general.
Yeah, oh man, it's such a loaded question because like you can go to what he had done for Nike. You can go to what he had done for the game of golf. You can do what he has done from growing the game of golf, So it's like if you think of Tiger Woods and just like the whole bucket itself, he is undoubtedly the most important piece to the early 2000s of when social media and even sorts of large TV contracts are coming to fruition. I mean, he set the foundation for what the PGA Tour is now and being able to market other golfers. I think a lot of people pay homage to Tiger of like really thanking him for bringing golf to the map and letting these players have the opportunity to have sponsors on their shirts, have sponsors and large deals with X, Y, and Z. I don't think we would be here without Tiger Woods. And that's just not just because of the game of golf, but from the marketability and the scale that he has done. So it's like even you saw, it's like now with Tiger departing from Nike, and he's launched his brand Sunday Red, and there's no doubt in my mind that that's going to be a successful brand wherever that goes. But he's done undoubtedly. He's the most important person in golf, and still is. Him playing in the Masters just last week. I mean, we got eyeballs on him just because it's Tiger Woods. So, and it sounds great that he's now on the policy board, or not the policy board, but part of that new corporation that the PGA Tour is working with, and he's a part of that. So as long as Tiger Woods is around the game of golf on the PGA Tour, just in general, it's going to be really great for everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I want to transition now to AI a little bit. Is there any way golf is kind of integrating AI or using AI in any marketing efforts? Talk about golf and AI a little bit.
Yeah, and it's something that I think some sports organizations just as a whole probably are going as well, and it could just be as simple as copywriting. It's just kind of even maybe going a little bit further with idea generation. And that's just maybe from the basic level, just like ChatGPT. I mean, it's just kind of, hey, I have a list of X, Y, and Z of 5 of these things. Now create me these in like a sentence form, or just create this and thing. It's just like, if you can simplify your task and be more efficient with your time, that goes a real long way with just how you can be effective and efficient, really. So, no, I'm saying, yeah, we probably used it within the tournament office and here at the John Deere Classic just from a copywriting or just kind of figuring things out just to be more efficient. And obviously everything you put into right now, like let's just use Chat GPT as an example, it's you're not going to take that as 100% accuracy. It's like still being critical with the information that it puts out, but as long as you kind of have that idea and allow it to kind of run with that idea, it's always nice to see what else is going to be put out from them for sure.
What about golf technology? Is there any AI like technology being used in golf, whether it's like GPS, golf clubs, golf balls, anything in that regard?
I think maybe the closest thing, I don't know if it's really exactly, but we saw Bryson DeChambeau last week. He used 3D printed, and I know it's not AI, but we're starting to get to that point where getting away from the the traditional route of how things have done. And Bryson's been a really good disruptor in that. Again, using irons that were 3D printed at the Masters. Again, that's not an AI thing, but we're starting to get to that point where a lot of this digitalized stuff can be used in golf, and it's like we're just at the starting point here. Not to say that's a scary thing or a good thing or bad thing, but it's just now that that information's here and that ability to use it's there, you'd be naive not to use it, because if that's where the direction that it could be going, really.
Yeah, and I hate Bryson. I actually met him at a qualifier for the John Deere Classic, as you know.
Pinnacle?
Yeah, at Pinnacle. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of him. He's a complete horrible human being. I hope he's better now. But one thing I think of in AI in golf, I don't know if they're already doing this, but think about caddies and all the data that they have on their players and of courses, and how they could input that into an AI tool and just ask for, basic statistics of saying like, what's the average score on this hole, or what are the average ball placements to this bunker, or what is the average, placement of this first shot, right? Using AI for data analysis on not only their golfer, but all the courses. I think I could see that.
Absolutely, and I think from like our side of things here, maybe the tour is doing that, and they have that comprehensive ShotLink system where they have all that data collection. I mean, if you come to our event at the John Deere Classic, you're going to see on every hole a bunch of different kind of interesting looking, let's call them small telephone poles at this point, located throughout each hole, and they're collecting all that data right now. And it's like, I can't speak to what the tour is doing with that data. Obviously, if you go on their website and see what did Jordan Spieth do on his par 3 scoring within the John Deere Classic and throughout the year, I'm sure they're kind of using that from their back end system UI to be able to pull that data. But to go back to your point, I think that's really something interesting to think about, where caddies could probably run with that and just to make better educated decisions, or to see where the player's missing, where they're hitting it better, or just kind of information like that. So
because it eliminates bias too, right? So
Totally.
like, I mean, caddies have bias, golfers have bias. I mean, there could be factoring wind into the equation, other weather, other circumstances. So I think it's really cool to see how that develops.
And look at Matthew Fitzpatrick. If you've seen his full swing episodes, he goes into detail with every single shot he has hit for maybe even the last 8 to 10 years. He has it all written down in an Excel sheet. So think how what he could be doing or other players are doing. We just may not know about it, but they could be doing something like that. So totally.
That's true. So I want to talk about marketing quacks now, Marshall. This is the Marketing Quacks podcast after all. We could talk about quacks in the golf business. We could talk about just marketing quacks in general, but I want to hear your thoughts on just what are some quacks or gimmicks that you see in your industry.
Yeah, and I think I alluded to it earlier, and it's just kind of like it's within a arm's reach is the equipment business to us, and it's not really, but it's the whole push of the year by year golf equipment. I mean, they have to be so aggressive, and now you get the new TaylorMade driver, and then the next year you got the new one coming out, and now you're looking at it just like, hey, I kind of got fleeced here. I thought I had the best new technology, and now TaylorMade's telling me that they have brand new technology. So for me, that's kind of like a marketing gimmick in some shape or form, is for you to buy their inventory when you know dang well that next year it's going to be coming out to a new piece. So
These aren't cheap too. I mean, these are $1,000 plus drivers.
Thousands of dollars worth of clubs are sold each year, millions of dollars worth, and they're just getting replaced by the next year. So to me, that's not to say when you flip on the Golf Channel, and to what you said, Bob Parsons coming in there, he's going on commercial and he's yelling at you. He says, "You gotta buy it now. You gotta get it now." It's just kind of like those old info commercials that they kind of feel like right now, but.
And the technology can't that be that much better from a 2020, 2024 to a 2023 model, you know?
You want to know, Ron, what I'm playing right now, my driver? I'm playing the driver that I graduated college with. And when I test that versus some of the other drivers right now, it still can't beat it. So it's like, as long as, and then we just go back to what we kind of talked about, is having the right information or just data in general. I go to the TrackMans and I do flight scopes and everything like that, and it's still performing with some of these newer stuff, if not some of the newer stuff. So even look at some of the tour guys too. It's like, they're still playing old models. They're not getting the new stuff right away. Like, it's just that because it's, one, not super tested, and they believe that a lot of the old models are still some of the best.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Marshall, this has been cool. Are there any final notes that you have just for anyone, whether they're interested in the golf industry, the sports industry, any marketing tips in that regard? Just any final notes for anyone listening?
Yeah, I think something that we're here doing now at the John Deere Classic is just kind of like really invest in your social growth. And I think that's important for people to hear, because always kind of people say spending money in order to get something out is a little bit hesitant for people like that. So I think something that we're really excited about for this John Deere Classic is we are partnering, and we also with, let's just call them, I think the best way to put it would be a videographer and photographers, a huge crew, 3 of them, and they have offsite editors being Matt Hahn, Jeff Marsh, and John Bach. You follow them all on Instagram, and they do an outstanding work. They've done work with the U.S. Open, the Ryder Cup, exclusive footage. So we're kind of investing on that side of things to really get some really great content that we can post throughout tournament, but also for the 51 other weeks of the year that are outsider events. So for us, that was a financial commitment for sure, but it's like we see the end goal here with that. And that's something, not saying that we wouldn't do, but that opportunity came to us and that we're really excited about from a social side of things.
That's a really good final question I just thought of. I want to ask you is like, how do you keep the John Deere Classic branding during the off season? Obviously, when it's coming up and you guys are pushing, people that are golf fans know, hey, John Deere Classic's coming up. But the week or months after, how do you keep that in people's minds?
Yeah, and we have what we do so well is here at the John Deere Classic is we, within our Birdies for Charity program, again, last year we did just a little bit over 14 million, which was incredible. So it's like, I'm not saying we shift gears outside of the golf, but we just kind of really engage with the local and regional community that we have. So it's like working with our sponsors, doing branded sponsors posts, kind of doing other miscellaneous events. Like here today, we have a Jake Owen charity concert, and then we still have 75 days until the tournament. So it's just kind of having small events, kind of doing branded content, doing sponsor content and stuff like that, just to kind of reintroduce that really we're still relevant, and obviously respectfully we are, but it's just knowing that we're just more than just a golf tournament right now.
For sure. That's cool. So where can people find you online?
Yeah, so right now probably the best spots for me right now is just on Twitter and Instagram. I'm starting to get into that area where I would really like to start figuring out with showing people the back end of what my job is, seeing the raw stuff. So for me, I think what we do, what really grows well, just kind of, this is my personal opinion, not John Deere Classic related, is people want to see how things are created, the raw side of things, not just the brand, right? Not just Marshall Lamp, but it's like what goes into the day by day of the tournament or operation side. The raw stuff is what really kind of people gravitate to. So probably hopefully over the next couple of months, I kind of start sharing some back of house stuff within the John Deere Classic.
That's cool. I'll definitely follow that because I used to work in the business again, so I kind of know some of it, but the John Deere Classic takes it to a whole nother level than what I've worked with in the past.
For sure.
But thanks again, Marshall, for hopping on, and thanks again to everyone for listening to this episode of the Marketing Quacks podcast. Be sure to tune in again next time.
Sweet.